Did you ever have any doubt going, what the fuck am I doing?
No barriers. Don't look at the final destination point and just take one step every day towards the dream that you want. You can get there. There's a Forbes article that interviewed 2,000 women, CEOs and MDs of companies across the US, and 93% of them played collegiate level sport. What does it take to get to the top of a company tree like all these women?
Was there any other standout times in your career where you can really look back on it and go, that was a real lesson that I learned and it propelled me further? Gary Lavin, before I introduce you, I'm going to just do a bit of ASMR here and open up a can of Vithit. Hang on a minute.
You missed.
Till I get it right.
I'll join you.
There you go. So we have here our pink grapefruit and lime. Yum. And it tastes delicious. And you have some dragon. Is there another?
Dragon fruit and yuzu is another one. Yeah.
Yes, a friend of mine told me to tell you that's the one she likes.
Oh.
Anyway, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for swinging by. You're a busy man, I know, and you're heading back to Dubai tomorrow. So I really appreciate you coming in.
Of course.
And saying hello to me. So how are things? Why are you back in Ireland?
Well, isn't Ireland fantastic? It hasn't rained a lot this year. So actually, we've been home for 2 months. We come back every year according to school holidays. And last year we came home, it rained every day for 5 weeks, which was a bit of a dampener when you got young kids. This year, it's actually, people are complaining about the weather. It's actually only rained about 5 times in 2 months. So we've been really happy. And we're not chasing the sun because we live in the sun. So we've had a great time.
And what's it like over there in Dubai?
It's not what you see on TV. And when we first decided we were going to escape the Irish winters, we were kind of looking at various different countries, and someone said Dubai to me, and I said, God, I don't want my kids growing up in an apartment in Dubai. And then around the same time, a friend came back and she said, oh no, there's this area down close to the beaches. It's like Santa Monica in LA, and it's all 2-story houses. It's a neighborhood. You can cycle everywhere. And I said, oh, that sounds really nice. Went over and visited, and I just fell in love. I said, this is perfect for us. So we decided in December, just after COVID, that we were going to get out and kind of escape because we were all locked up. Obviously, it was a crap time for everybody. And we said we're going to try and escape the cold winters. And we left, that we decided in December. And by September of that year, we moved with just 4 suitcases. That was it. And we basically said, if it's not working, we'll come back after a year. But yeah, we both have a sense of adventure, myself and my wife. So we just decided to go. And that was 3 years ago. And we're loving it.
And is it very pro-business over there, pro-entrepreneurial, or are you working on the business over there?
Yeah, I mean, we have distribution over there, which is you'd need a whole podcast to talk about distribution in Dubai. It's been a bit of a mess, but we've solved the problem. But it was kind of a 50% lifestyle, 50% business choice. I wanted my kids to just see more of the world. And when I lived, before I had kids, I lived in London when I set the company up in the UK, and when we were trying to expand. So I lived there for about 5 years. Then when our little daughter was born in 2018, we moved to Australia for 6 months to set it up over there. And then we kind of like that moving part. And I mean, the world is so much smaller now. Like when we're over there, it's no longer like days ago you'd be crying on a boat and you'd never see your parents again. Like, well, I can phone my parents every day and look at them on Instagram or any of these things. And you feel really close to your friends. You know, you're talking on Facebook or whatever, in Snapchat or whatever it is with your family. And it doesn't feel like you're away. And so I'm on WhatsApp with all my friend groups, and we're talking about rugby games and football games and whatever. So you're communicating every day. It's really not like it was. Yeah. So we weren't afraid of it at all. Like, you know, we're not much for fears in our family. So we just get up and go do it. And you can always come home.
It would seem that way, that you're not much about fear. You're a lot about risk taking. So I was going to get back to the early days of Vithit. Yeah. And what made you want to go about bringing a vitamin drink to the market? What was your I suppose light bulb moment? Because you were a professional rugby player initially.
That's right, yeah. Well, not a very good one, but it starts off
oh, you're modest.
Yeah. It starts off I think when you go back further, and we can get into this a little bit deeper, but I think it's where is your mindset when you're a young kid. So both of my parents were entrepreneurs, and both of them always said, you know, you can do everything you want. And I genuinely believe that from being a really young kid. Then there's sports, which is also really important. That, you know, if you're losing every day and winning every second day and getting dropped and having all of those minor tragedies in your life when you're a kid, like you ask any kid who's big into football, if he gets dropped, it's devastating for them, but it sets you up for life. And then you get up again and you fight and you play better and all that kind of stuff. So all that kind of stuff sets you up for business. But both of my parents were risk takers. You know, when my dad was younger, he was in what he'd call the wrong side of the city. He lived around Church Street, and he worked his way. He was part of a family that had a bar, and he worked his way out of there when he was like 20 years of age and bought a pub in Rathfarnham back in 71 or something, which at the time was the biggest price that anybody had ever paid for any pub in Ireland. So probably equivalent to, I don't know, 20 million today. It was like 120 grand, but it was like the price of 10 houses. So it was a big deal. So he was a risk taker, and then he built his business up and was very successful publican. And then, you know, my mum's been involved in hotels, fashion business, all this kind of stuff. So she is definitely more of a maverick. She is like, just hit the accelerator when everyone else is hitting the brakes. Okay. So I've definitely had a bit of that from her. I was a lot more of a risk taker, but as you get a little bit older, you kind of get into kind of slight protection mode, that you're not taking as many risks because you don't need to. You know, now that I have an established business, I don't need to risk as much as I used to. But I'm never afraid to risk. I kind of always enjoyed it. Like I love taking on bigger companies, you know, like Coca-Cola, Lucasade, all those guys. I love to take them on and give them a kick in the ankles and give them a bruise, and it's kind of fun for me. And I suppose that comes maybe back from playing sports, you know, playing team sports, which I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. When you say that about giving the others a kick in the ankle, have you ever had copycat brands or people trying to copy you? And
we didn't plan this one, but that's an interesting question. So about 11 or 12 years ago, we were becoming successful in Ireland, and a very large company based in the UK, which I shall not mention, decided to copy Vithit. And I phoned my lawyer and I said to the lawyer, what's the chances here? And the lawyer said, it's about 50-50 that you'll win. Now, this product had Vit in the name, so my brand is Vithit. It had Vit in the name. I have a circular brand. They had a circular brand. I have plants and flowers and fruits on the left. They had plants and flowers and fruits on the left. They had the exact same flavour as us, like identical, and it's really hard to copy it. So my flavour house at the time had sold my flavours behind my back, so that's a whole other story. I got those guys back as well. But you have to be a bit competitive in this. So anyway, I phoned them up and the lawyer said 50-50, so I kind of backed off a little bit and I was going, geez, you know, that's going to cost me 50 grand. I didn't have it. So I was going like, this could really drag me down. Maybe I'll just take them on. And then I went to another lawyer, and the other lawyer had been involved in the McCambridge's versus Brennan's Bread case, and they had won for McCambridge's. And this lawyer basically said to me, in no other terms, I will slit their throat and watch them bleed out on the floor. And I went, you're my lawyer.
Yes.
And so within about 3 weeks, they basically said, the other lawyer said, oh, we haven't copied anything, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I want a court date within 10 days. How fast can I get a court date? And they were like, well, you know, in about 10, 12 days, if you really go for it. So 10, 12 days, we're going to court. And when it came to like 9 or 10 days, was a day or so to go, the two lawyers were talking on opposition sides. And my lawyer said to their lawyer, look, you know, we're going to court. And the other lawyer says, just give us another week. And I said, no, we've got 24 hours. You're going to do the deal or we're going to court. And 24 hours later, just before we were going to court, they sent a piece of paper, which was 4 pages long, and I stopped reading after the first page because it was like, we haven't copied you 1, 2, 3, 4, and they copied us in about 10 different points. And so I gave up reading and I kind of left it there. I presumed we were going to court, and then my lawyer phoned me and goes, "Isn't it great news? They've backed off." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll read the bottom line." It said, "Yeah, but it was a trial that hasn't worked, so they backed off." So I got rid of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, back in the day as well, when they had done that, I'd phoned up all the retailers in the country and I said, you know, the way I've created this category for you guys, and there was no such product for vitamin drinks before I did it in 2000, they were there, yeah. And I said, I don't mind competition, there's competition now, but I said, if somebody is completely copying me and trying to take something that I've created, I wouldn't want you supporting it. And none of the retailers supported them. It was amazing. This was long. They probably wouldn't do that now, but back then they did it, yeah.
Yeah, I know, because there's definitely, like I've seen knockoff versions in the likes of Aldi and things like that.
Yes.
But there's much more, I suppose it's much more opportunity for people to go into the drinks market now. It would seem there's loads of brands popping up here and there. But it seems like you're the one that did all the heavy lifting initially.
There's a lot of them going to the wall though.
Yeah.
It's very hard. When I look back on the amount of trouble and strife that I went through, optimism, my natural optimism was just getting through each wall at a time. But if you were to say to me, you're going to lose money for 10 or 11 years, you're going to go broke, you're going to have to move to the UK, you're going to have to do all those things, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm not doing it. But, as an optimistic person, you just go, oh, it's definitely going to work. And I look at all these companies now, you really need a lot of money to create your own brand, produce thousands of cans or bottles or whatever, and just keep producing. You need a lot of cash flow, you need all that kind of stuff. And a lot of companies who are now doing it, mainly based in the UK, they're running out of road within about 4 to 5 years. And what's happening now is they used to be able to fund it through like venture capitals or banks or whatever. And now, because interest rates have gone up, money is now more expensive. So let's say if you're a rich guy and you had a few million, before you might say, I'm getting no return on my money in a bank, so I'm getting 1%. That's no good. I'm going to throw it in and into some company and maybe I'll get 3 or 4%. Now you're getting 4% in a bank. You're not taking risks. So companies can't raise money anymore. So it's becoming harder and harder in our business to actually get a loan to raise money to build up a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And how difficult is it to build up a brand?
Yeah, it's... I don't want to put anybody off. It's very, very hard.
There's a lot of celebrities now backing drinks brands, the likes of Logan Paul with the Prime, and even Conor McGregor going into whiskey and stuff like that. What do you think of all that?
Yeah, I have a friend of mine in the beauty industry who hates it every time she sees it. It doesn't bother me that much. A lot, some of them are working. I mean, I know Conor McGregor's brand worked really well. George Clooney's brand worked really well. So there are guys that just set something up. It's kind of an American business model. It always works in America. For some reason, we're more cynical here. If Marty Morrissey was to start a sports drink tomorrow, would you be buying it? Whereas George Clooney does in America, they just bang it, they go straight away. But even George Clooney's tequila, that I think was that was another superstar. But any of those guys who are setting up the business, they don't really end up here. But Prime is a perfect example. So Prime sold £112 million last year in the UK in 2023. And this year it's absolutely nosedived. It's been delisted out of all the stores across the UK. There is you can hardly get Prime anymore. It's completely flopped. So I don't know. I mean, they probably made $1 billion in sales in a year, which is a great business model, and you just walk away maybe if you take some cash out. But if you want to build a sustainable business model, that's not really the way to do it. But it has worked for some of them, but it doesn't work for all. It's not a perfect fix,
Yeah, I remember my kids actually going mad for the Prime. One of them went to the shops and spent his €10 on a bottle of Prime. That was when the shops were absolutely taking the mick out of the fact that everyone wanted it. But like that now, there's no interest in it really anymore. So it's one of those like one-hit wonders almost. Yeah. But they end up with a lot of stock left over, I'm sure, at the end, and the sales aren't...
Yeah, it was a fad. Like everything, like a hula hoop, a yo-yo back in the 60s or 70s and whatever, Tamagotchis and whatever games kids get. Once supply meets demand, they realise it's just another sports drink and they'll move on to the next thing. And you don't want to be in a fad business. You want to be in a sustainable, built business.
Yeah, I agree. Hence why I have you here. I'm going to grill you. I'm only messing. But when you started out, I know that there's the story of you going in around the Jeep, around Ireland, literally calling into each supplier.
Yeah.
So that's quite different to today almost, because you would see there's buyers now. You kind of go to one central person that might distribute it out to a group. So in a way, I know that you had the long trawl of all of those years, but in a way, the fact that you had to do that meant that you were building relationships with each of your your retailers from the very start. But how tough was that those first few years?
Well, that part actually hasn't changed. I advised 2 or 3 companies for free, mind you, because I don't want to. I don't want them to almost fail the way I did. So there's 3 or 4 companies that will phone me up, have a call with them once a month or whatever, and the only thing I say to them is, get the hell up off your ass and go sell. Because yes, you had buyers when I was starting it up who will take Spar, for instance, right? If you get a listing with Spar, it doesn't necessarily mean you're on the shelf. You still have to get a distributor to put it on the shelf. And more often than not, a distributor doesn't care about your small brand as they do about selling Lucozade or Cadbury's or whatever other brands they have in their truck. So the sales reps are natural humans, and they will go in and sell, I know Cadbury sells, and they'll go put their product on. Are they really going to sell your small protein bar? Probably not. So you still have to get out and do the donkey work and go around. And that's what I always say to people. There's nothing more important than sales. So you've got to sell it yourself till you get it to a certain stage. So Vithit now is an essential in stores around Ireland. So you really don't have to go in every day and ask the guy to stick it up on the shelf, because it's one of the top 7 best-selling products in the country, so it has to be behind. So you'll start off with Coke, Monster, Red Bull, Lucozade, Coke Zero, and then Vithit. And then the next one behind us is Coke Zero.
So all Coke. Of those big, massive brands, and then you're number 7.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Like we outsell like Innocent, Tropicana, Volvic, Evian, all those guys, in Ireland. Not in every country, but just in Ireland. Yeah. We do okay in other countries too.
And how are you doing in the UK? It's a bit of a tough nut to crack. I'm trying to just crack that nut myself now with my supplements, and it's just a completely different market.
It's incredibly hard. They are the toughest buyers in the world. I'll give you an example. So we're in Sainsbury's, Boots, WH Smith, Co-op, Morrison's, and there's one retailer that we're not in, but we're actually the best-selling vitamin drink in the UK. And one retailer is selling a product that sells 2.5 times less than we do, but we still can't get on the shelf. So it's a very frustrating place to do business. We've definitely broken the back of it. We've got 10 staff over there now. We're mainly in sales, and we've got a great guy running the show, Ryan, over there. He started in 2012, I think, and basically, I had moved over to the UK. I had been listed with Tesco, and I got listed with Boots, and I basically needed someone to work with me. And I just got this young guy, Ryan. He was only 26 at the time. He looked about 12. And I said to him, right, there you go. And I said, you run the company now. You run the UK. Off you go. And he's now our managing director in the UK, and he's built a whole team around him. He's done a phenomenal job. But the UK is a very, very hard place to crack. On the other side, it's 10 times the population of here. If you are successful here, you can 10x your sales over in the UK, and you can make a really, really good living in the UK.
And why do you think it's so much more different, or such a tough nut to crack?
There's a lot of competition. If you look at the amount of startup brands in the UK in every space, take vitamins, take vitamin drinks, take waters, you name it. It might be 10x population, but it's 10x innovation as well. There's lots of people are innovating in the UK. They've got alcohol-free beers, alcohol-free gins. I mean, alcohol-free everything kind of started in the UK, even ahead of the US. And it's become a real startup culture over there. So there's even a society of young foodies, they call themselves, and all these young people kind of get together who have all these different, protein ball brands and this, that, and the other, and they all get together and share notes, and they meet up once a month in the UK. Like I said, everybody wants to get into it at the moment for some reason. Mm-hmm. Fast-moving consumer goods, it seems to be kind of the cool, trendy thing to get in. And I suppose it's because there is a low mental barrier to it. You don't actually have to be an accountant or a politician to get in there. You don't have to train anything. It's just like, I think I'll create, like Prime, for instance, I think I'll create a drink, make it a nice thing, and stick it on the shelf. But it's hard if you're not Logan Paul to get on the shelf. It's very hard.
Yeah. What other countries are you in other than?
So we're in about 18 around the world, but our biggest markets are Ireland, UK, Iceland, Belgium, Holland, a small bit in Portugal, small bit in France, Australia, UAE. I'm missing something, but they're our biggest markets.
And do you have any plans to go into the US or?
No. We actually half put a toe in and got burnt. Okay. And pulled the toe out very fast. I was about to take my leg.
Okay.
Yeah, we realised, I went in there, as everyone does, going, we're going to take on the US, but the US is 52 states, but they're really 52 countries, right? And so if you go and take on America, it's just too big, too expensive. And we went in, we did the wrong model. We went in through distributors. Distributors told us to hire 6 guys. The 6 guys didn't do a tap. They were working at other things. And it ended up costing so much money, and last minute I saw the money that we were burning. I just pulled out and now we still sell in the States, just in a small area on the East Coast, but just have an anchor there that if we ever want to move in that we could and go. But you'd want to have, we're still privately owned, so we don't have any funding. We don't have any partners. It's still privately owned by me and my brother, who's the CEO, and my dad, who put money in when nobody else would. He was Bank of Dad, and he's done very well out of this investment, but nobody else would have put money in at the time.
Okay. So bring me back to that early stage when you got the idea. I'd like you to tell everyone.
Yeah. Well, I was always kind of, I never wanted to work for anybody. And I tried working on a direct sales company, picking up a phone and selling tickets for concerts back, 25 years ago. And I just hated working for people. For some reason, I had this aversion to someone. I felt they were always looking over my shoulder. I was never comfortable working for people. Then I tried to work in a PR company. I was there for as an intern for about a month. I was just really uncomfortable. And I was like, I have to go do my own thing. So I always say it would have been, it's because some people say, oh God, it's so brave that you went and started up your own company. And honestly, it wasn't for me. Being brave would have been getting accountancy exams or biology exams and actually going and getting a real job. I couldn't do that. I wasn't built for that. So it wasn't a brave thing. It was just a natural thing for me to do. So I was playing rugby, got injured. I was messing around selling proteins and creatines to my friends in the UK. I had a contract with Harlequins, smashed my knee up, lost my contract. And my thought process was, I'm never going to let anybody conduct my wages towards me again. I need to create my own boat to get across an island, basically. So I remember standing under the stand in Twickenham after losing my contract and just being distraught. My career is over. Who I was. I was a rugby player. That was who I was. And I had to just recreate myself. But I'd been buying and selling stuff and rebranding it and selling it to my friends. And I realized back then things have changed, that men didn't spend money on themselves, right? Men never. I used to remember putting on moisturizer. My friend was the first to put on moisturizer in the St. Mary's dressing room and everybody laughed at him. Right? This is not that long ago. Yeah. So then you're kind of saying, okay, are men going to take protein and things to make them stronger? And no, they weren't. And so I was like, this is a very long road to get men to change their habits. So I moved from that into women's nutrition because women were spending money on themselves. So I created a company called Life's a Peach, which had vitamins, and I sold it into Boots. But then I wasn't really mad in the business. I didn't have a passion for it. And I never liked taking tablets myself. I'm literally gag when I take tablets. So I always had this idea, why can't I put vitamins into drinks? So that was kind of where my thought process was. And then one day I was on a treadmill working my injury in the local gym. And I saw this guy, he was overweight, sweating buckets. And at the end of it, he took in a bottle of sports drink. And I knew that there's 28 to 48 grams of sugar in that sports drink. And I also knew that your children can't have more than 15 grams of sugar a day. You can't have more than 20 grams being a woman, and I can't have more than 25 grams of sugar a day. So this guy is taking in twice the amount, and he's running for half an hour, and he comes off it in worse shape than he started. And I was like, my God, there must be another way to do this. So I just started. This is before the internet, back in 1998. So I started asking questions, drove down to Limerick to Nash's Mineral Waters, and I talked to the guy who owned it, Mr. Nash, can't remember his first name. And I said, look, is it possible to put vitamins into drinks? And he said, oh, I don't know, you might have to go to Germany. I flew to Germany and met with the company, and that's kind of how it all started. Then I went broke for about 11 years after that.
And how did you manage work, the business when you're not making any money?
Well, this is back in Celtic Tiger days, when you could buy an apartment, make money and sell it. And I put it down the big black hole that was my company. So I was basically doing two jobs. I was buying and selling apartments, one a year, making right few quid.
You're quite the Del Boy.
Oh, total Del Boy, yeah. Well, again, no fear, right? You're young, you can do anything. So I bought the apartment, sell the apartment, it would make money, put it into the big black hole that was my company, which was losing money, not paying myself a wage out of it and just kind of keeping it going. But then when prices started to go south on apartments around 2006, I was kind of like, well, that bit's gone. I'm losing money. I need to focus on something else. And that's when I really met an accountant, and she sat down and she said, look, your business is insolvent. And I'd never heard that word before. And I was like, well, I'd heard the word, just not to me. Yeah. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? She goes, well, you're going under. She said, if you don't rescue this immediately, you're gone. And I had 3 sales reps on the road doing the hard yards that I should have been doing myself. And she said, you need to let go of you need to make them unemployed, which is tough. I had to have 3 phone calls, sit down with them and say, look, I'm really sorry, I can't pay myself a wage. I haven't paid myself in a year or 2 years or whatever it was. And I'm going to have to go out and do it myself. Got in a car myself, needs must. I drove around the country. I always say I had a South Dublin disease called laziness. I thought I could just create something and let other people do it.
Yeah.
And you can't. You got to go do it yourself. So it was a lesson in how not to be lazy. And I just had to get up on my own 2 feet and drive around the country, stay in B&Bs and sell it into 3,500 stores in a year's period. And I rescued the company that way.
Okay. So you always... Was it the eternal optimist in you that always knew it was going to work? Did you ever have any doubt going, what the fuck
No, do you know what? It can be an ailment being an eternal optimist, and it can also be positive. Because when I was going through those hard times when I had all the solicitors throwing letters through my doors and I couldn't take my bins out and couldn't pay my bin tax and all that kind of stuff, I was always thinking, yeah, but it's going to work someday, which wasn't really working back then. But a lot of other people would have given up and got a real job. So for me, I've always been, if someone puts a gun to my head, I'm always looking at the gun going, yeah, they're not going to pull the trigger. I don't know where it comes from. And it was definitely a handicap years ago because it means that I wouldn't have worked as hard until the bullet was literally coming towards my head. And that's when I had to change and go, whoa, I was in shock then. And nobody works harder when they're under stress. And I just went overtime for 12 months and just built it up from there. Okay. But it changed me because I was lazy. I was a lazy guy, you know. Probably still am a bit.
And how do you keep on top then of emerging market trends, etc.? So I know you have all your SKUs, your lovely different colours that you put on the shelf. How do you keep on top of the ever changing market? Because isn't it all about, like, they would say, oh, you need to bring out a new product every couple of years to keep people interested in it, retire old ones. Do you do that all the time?
Not really. I've always been.
You are lazy.
Yeah, very, very. No, I've always been a kind of a touch and feel guy. So any of my products that we create, I spend between 9 months to a year and a half on every flavour that we have. Because what I want people to try Vithit and go, that tastes just as good as the sugary crap on the shelf. Why would I not drink Vithit? So I want it to be an easy, Irish and UK people, we've got lazy taste buds. If it doesn't taste great, we're not going to drink it. So the first thing with Vithit is it has to taste great, because once you try it, if it doesn't taste great, you're going to, I'm going back to my sugary crap. So that's really important. When it comes to trends and that kind of stuff, I just get onto my taste technicians and I'll say, what do you think will work this time? And we go by colours. So if you look at Vithit product, it's like a rainbow on the shelf. So we've now got 2 orange colours, 1 yellow, 1 pink, 1 red, another kind of a purpley colour, and 1 green. So what I'll say to them now next is, okay, the yellow is the worst seller. Let's bring out, a kind of a half between yellow, and we start with the colours. So I say, okay, what do we got then? And then they'll go pineapple, orange, mango, blah, blah, blah. And they'll give me 7 flavours and I'll try them all and I'll go, that's the one that works. Let's just run with it. So we don't do any taste testing or any of that kind of stuff.
So you just
I do
it yourself?
Yeah.
You don't go market research?
No market research. And I'll tell you why. Because I am an average Southside lad who has average taste buds. I'm not into sushi. I'm not into like any exotic foods. I wouldn't let my wife go near my products because she has exotic taste buds, right? Okay. So I know that if I like them, that most of the population are going to like them. And it's just a kind of a middle of the road kind of thing. So I mean, I've been doing it for like 25 years. So like if you were to give me a juice and it's orange, I'll be able to tell you if there's mango or pineapple or whatever. It's almost like a juice sommelier.
I love it.
Yeah. But no, I'll just go like that. Now, of course, I would throw it around to the team and I'll go, what do you think of that? What do you think of that? But pretty much it's just like taste it. And the reason why it takes 9 months to a year is it might be too sharp, might be too sweet. I'll get them to up the vitamin content, down the sugar content, all that kind of stuff. And eventually you just get it right, get the mouthfeel right, which is juice has, the basis of it is, God, I'm teaching boring lessons now, but the basis of it is juice has good mouthfeel. So sugar has good mouthfeel. So you've got to try and substitute that mouthfeel, which is kind of like solid. So if you're drinking juice, it's solid. But if you're drinking something that doesn't have sugar in it, it's kind of almost like watery sharp. So you got to try and I've definitely gone down a rabbit hole here. But anyway, that's kind of the thought process. Yeah. But it's really a touch and feel thing. It's, I didn't do a degree in it or anything like that. I just know what I like. And when I like it, I'll go, let's run with that.
And would you ever think of selling smaller ones into pubs so they could use them as mixers in their alcohol drinks?
Yeah, I think we've got so much work to do between now and then, though. Yeah, like, if my distributor here wanted to start selling into pubs, but the problem in pubs is you can't touch and feel the product. If you walk into a Spar store or a Centra or a Super Value, you've got the doors right there and you can see it. In a pub, you've got to walk up to a counter, you've got all the spirits there, and you've got to look over the counter to look down and see your soft drink. So then how do you get people's attention? You've got to put it on a plinth and you've got to have it there in the bar, and then the barman says, I don't want that crap on my shelf. So it's a completely different marketplace. It's a completely different sales point. And look, there's more than enough business around Europe for me to just keep going into supermarkets and convenience stores and petrol stations and cafes and,
Okay.
Market's huge, so I don't need to go into pubs.
Okay. And because you've established yourself, do you find that your people are warmer to you when you go into a new country?
Never.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. They're always like, the buyers are just so tough.
Even if you go, here, look at this past record.
Yeah, like I'm a superstar in the UK, don't care. We're friends. We're friends. What are you going to do?
Show me what you can do for us type thing.
It's kill or be killed. Like, it's really tough. Yeah, no, it's not. It doesn't get any easier. To this day, there's 3 European countries that I cannot get distribution in. And, this year we're going to sell over 50 million bottles around the units around the world. And they're still like, don't care.
What are they? You can't say.
I can't say.
Because you're still trying.
Still trying, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't want to show weakness.
No problem. Yeah. The new plastic tax, has that affected you in any way? I know you've cans now, but you initially go into a market with the plastic bottles, don't you? Or do you go in with the whole...
Yeah. No, we've actually encouraged it because it now means we know where plastic is going. So plastic really is a worldwide problem. But if every country was to do this, plastic would be a minor problem, because we know it's not going to end up in landfills, it's not going to end up in streams, it's being recycled. So when it first was announced, the whole of our industry were going, I'm not sure whether our sales will go down or whatever. The first month our sales took a little bit of a bump because, you're adding on 15 cents onto everything. But then it's just habit forming. It's like the smoking ban in pubs years ago. Everyone's going, God, that's going to be really tough for pubs. But people just got used to it and they started having cigarettes outside and whatever. So our bottles are 50% recycled plastic anyway, and now the whole bottle is getting recycled through a system, and it's going to go in and come out as a new bottle again. So it's not going to end up in landfill anymore. So suddenly the Irish government, they don't always do a great job, but they've done a great job on this, that plastic bottles are going to they're going to stay in the system. They're not going to leave the system.
Okay. And you gave me an interesting statistic there before you came in. You said that the making of an aluminium can takes up more energy than plastic.
Takes twice, I think 2.3 times the energy to make than a bottle. So plastic just has a really bad reputation. And, a lot of it is wanted. The main plastic problems come from the 3 biggest rivers in the world. Don't get me to quote you the rivers, but it's the Nile and the Andes and something else. That's where all the plastic problems come from. That people don't have it. They can't afford to put their products back into the system, so they just chuck them out in landfills and they end up in streams and all that kind of stuff. That's where the world is getting. That's where the main problems are coming from. But yeah, cans have a much better reputation. And that's one of the reasons why we brought out a can, because some people are just plastic averted. They have a plastic aversion. I understand that, so they can go for cans. But actually, now cans have an upside, is that they're infinitely recyclable, but it takes 2.3 times the energy to make a can than it does a bottle. Okay. So it's not all the plastic is not as huge an enemy as people believe it to be. Obviously, we need to clean up our rivers and oceans and all that kind of. I'm not here to be pro-plastic at all. I'm just saying that if everybody did what the Irish government has done, the system would be the world would be a lot better off, because plastic's not going anywhere. People are going to continue to have things in plastic, but we just got to make sure the plastic goes to the right place. Okay.
I want to talk to you a little bit about entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs in particular, because you were quoting some study there that was done by Fortune magazine.
Yeah. So some people kind of say, actually, how I discovered this was I was coming home in a cab one night, and a Dublin cabbie turns to me and goes, "Have you got any kids?" I said, "I do, yeah. I have a daughter at the time." And he goes, "Aren't girls great?" I said, "They are great." And he goes, "Do you know that all women should stay in sports?" And I said, "Well, I'm big into sports myself. I agree." And he says, "There's a Forbes article that interviewed, I think like 2,000 women in, I think 2019 or something. And they found that 93% of them, they were all at C-suite levels. They were all like CEOs and MDs of companies across the US. And 93% of them played collegiate level sport. And I was like, that is unbelievable stat. And I checked it, it's 93%. I'm going, well, why would it be so high? And now I have my own theory on it, and maybe you could espouse your thoughts on it. But my theory would be that when girls get to a certain age, 12 or 13, it might not look as cool. Boys are into sports because it's cool for a guy to play sports. But maybe the girls stop playing sports. And what happens when they stop playing sports? They stop competing, they stop losing, they stop winning, they stop trying to kick someone else's ass, right? Whereas boys continue doing it. So that whole competitive spirit is killed off in young girls at the age of 12 plus. And it's just so wrong to kill off a competitive spirit in a kid. And that's what I think is happening. So if you imagine, what does it take to get to the top of a company tree, like all these women who they'd interviewed? They've got to fight their way to the top. They've got to not be upset at boardroom meetings. Some guy's going to try and take them down, and they go, no, I'm taking you down, kind of Kamala Harris fight type of vibe.
Yeah.
And I bet she played team sports. It'd be interesting to find out. She kind of has it about her. But, and I'm teaching my daughter, I'm basically saying, just got to fight for stuff. Get out and get there. And if she tries to give up sports, I'm not letting her. She can make her own decisions when she's 18. But team sports are just everything, I think, for kids,
Absolutely. Well, I think that there's a number of reasons why girls may drop out of sports. They become very body conscious in the first instance when they start to, when they hit puberty and start to develop. I had a lady on here once, and she was Margaret Walsh, and she's a physical therapist, and she was saying about GAA shorts are white. So girls get their periods. They can be uncomfortable wearing white shorts. And then also the GAA shorts are actually made for boys, so they're little girls or teenage girls whose hips are widening and waists are going in, are wearing shorts that are made for a straight up and down body, so it's really uncomfortable, and it makes them feel like a big arse, and they become even more conscious. So I absolutely think that team spirit, in whatever way they can do it, even being involved in acting or drama societies where you're going for parts and you're losing out in them, and you're in the chorus or whatever,
learn how to lose, communicate, learn how to win, learn how to be gracious, learn how to fight, because entrepreneurship's all about fighting. It's always about fighting the bigger guy and trying to take the bigger guy down. And if you're not taught from a young age to stand up and fight for yourself, go on, give up at 10 years of age. What kind of a message are we sending to people? No entrepreneurs are coming out when they're telling them, you know what, it's fine, just go and play video games. What kind of a message?
So you don't believe in that everyone gets a medal for participation?
That's the worst idea ever. It really is a terrible idea. Yeah. So, I'm going through this with my kids. And look, we're talking to people on podcasts who all have kids, so I'm not telling people how to bring up their kids. I'm just giving you my lessons. My daughter, at a very young age, she was on her own for 3 years, right? And when she's younger, you kind of let her win most of the time. And then suddenly we play stakes and ladders, and I'm winning half the time. And she's losing her head because she's not used to losing. She's going, you're so mean. I'm like, what? This is a game of luck. You make your own luck. And I'm actually beating her like 50% of the time. And she gets pissed off at me. But I'm consciously doing this so she can eventually get used to losing, because she's going to go to school and she's in now. She's going to play football and she's not going to be the best football player, and she's going to cry and wonder why. And I think this whole thing of, and I think it's finished, it's changing, I hope it's changing, is that giving everybody a medal is not setting you up for life, because there's going to be kids that are terrible at sport, and I genuinely feel bad for them, but they're going to be really good at something else. I believe every kid is good at something. You just have to find what that is. But we're all going to lose at some stage. I mean, the amount of times I was kicked in the ass and fell down in my business that it seemed like career ending. I failed so many more times than I've won. But I would always be like, no, it's going to get better. And I believe it's because of the training from being a young guy, playing rugby, losing, getting beaten up, getting dropped, all those kind of negative things. Guess what? There's a lot of negatives in life. And if you don't build kids up to be prepared for negativity, you're setting them up for failure.
Yeah. Oh my God. So can you tell me another couple of failures that you may have had that gave you the real kick in the arse? I know you had the original one where you met with your accountant. Was there any other standout times in your career where you were like, you can really look back on it and go, that was a real lesson that I learned and it propelled me further?
I can't think of anything specific, but I mean, my life was a failure for probably 9 years. Like, I didn't take a wage for it. So if I started the company in 2000, I'd been working on it for 2 years from 1998. And then when I met that accountant, it was probably 2006. So there's probably 8 years of total failure. I used to go in to stores and I'd sell the product in and I'd be all optimistic, and then you come back 2 weeks later and the product is still on the shelf and nobody has bought it. There is nothing more devastating for a salesman to go in and his product's still on the shelf gathering dust. Then we had problems with bottles expanding. Like 17 years ago, we had the mix in the product was wrong, and it was like you'd open it and go, and my products are still, and I'd have to, and then you'd have labels falling off. I mean, it's just countless. I mean,
is that all recalls then? You have to go and recall all that
you'd
stuff?
have to go in and recall. Now, thankfully we weren't in enough stores. It might have been in 200 stores, and I'd get around to all 200 and I'd shift the products off and put it back on and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just no idea. Like, the amount of failures I had is just off the charts. Like, I'd need a whole show to listing all the failures. There's been a lot of them. But you get back up. And I mean, we've been sued. I've sued people trying to defend your brand. I've been screwed over by manufacturing companies. One in Ireland years ago. We actually don't produce in Ireland because there's no facilities here to do it. We produce in Belgium. We had Brexit. We stopped producing in the UK. But I mean, I used to have a production company when we were starting in Ireland. And we would say to them, okay, we're getting products done on the 1st of October. And they'd say, grand. 1st of October would come and go, 1st of November would come and go, and the 1st of December, and suddenly they produced for us. I'd have no stock for 3 months because they were taking orders from bigger companies in mainland Europe and thought we wouldn't be successful, so they were just pushing us aside. And they nearly broke me. I mean, Jesus, keep going. I remember a few more. Yeah,
and you've no comeback for that if they don't produce your.
If you don't produce, you don't have money, you don't have sales, you don't have anything. You have no cash flow. You're going down one way and you won't come back.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So there was just many of those kind of issues. Manufacturing companies upping prices on me for filling. About 8 years, but actually during COVID, here's an interesting one. During COVID, we were being produced in the UK, and the company we were producing with, and they were doing at the time probably 30 million bottles, and they, over the 2 years of COVID, they upped price twice on us. And then COVID hit, and my distributor in Ireland, who buys the products from us and puts them on the shelves, phoned me up and said, look, we don't know when we're going to sell another bottle of Vithit again, so we can't pay you for 120 days. So I was like, oh God. So I phoned up my manufacturer and I said, look, we're not going to get paid for 120 days. We don't want to pay you for 120 days. And they said, no, you need to pay us within 35 days as per your agreement. I said, well, our agreement it's only got 12 months left in the agreement. I said, if you don't do this with us, I'm going to be looking for another manufacturer. And I said, take that to the board and tell them. Took to the board, came back and went, no, we're not giving you any more days. So we scrambled and got enough cash around and just about survived it and came out the other end fine. 12 months later, I get a phone call from a manufacturer. He goes, Gary, I believe you're leaving us. I'm totally shocked. And I said, very shocked. I said, are you on the board of that company? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, you do remember 12 months ago, we asked you to partner with us and see us through and help us and hold our hands together. And you refused. Yeah. Well, this is the result of it. Goodbye. They were making £3 million profit a year out of us. And they lost it because they didn't partner with us.
Okay, lesson learned.
But they nearly put us out of business. Yeah. Because, you're not getting paid.
And it is difficult. I don't think people see that whole chain of command even and that whole supplier and distribution thing. If one person doesn't pay someone in that chain, the middle person go bust.
Absolutely.
Very quickly.
Yeah, you get squashed a lot as the middle guy. And we constantly go through these things of paying someone and getting paid at the right time. And listen, there's people with much bigger brain cells than me running that now. I don't know what goes on day to day in my company anymore, which is a great thing.
That's great.
Yeah, I think the best stage in a company is when you get run over by a bus tomorrow and your company keeps going, that's a successful company. So we got to that stage probably 4 years ago.
Okay.
Interesting one, actually. My brother, who was an oil trader, and
just an oil trader, just as you do, out in Saudi.
So I didn't go to college. I went to the University of Life, and I didn't have the brain. I actually just about got enough points to go to Maynooth, and I just didn't take it, and I went off to Australia and did all that kind of stuff. But so he went the traditional route. He was kind of a strong B.A. student, went to Trinity, did all this stuff, and went out to London, worked really hard and got really high in oil trading company, came back to Ireland, and then the algorithm started beating his trades when he was 50 years of age. So he's got 3 kids in school, 50 years of age, and his income has now disappeared. Right? Okay. So he's gone, what am I going to do? He goes back to Trinity, does an MBA, loves it. He revels in it. So he ends up, I think he tutors in Trinity now once or twice a month. And then halfway through, he had just come out, and he's a 50-year-old, highly intelligent guy, but nobody wants to hire a 50-year-old. They basically think you're on the scrap heap because he didn't have any experience in it. So he's basically 5 months, I think, unemployed. And my friend looks at me in a pub one night, very successful guy in his art, and he goes, "You're some stupid bollocks." And I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "Your brother is the sharpest guy in the room and you haven't hired him." He said, "You're a stupid bollocks." And I went, "Geez, you're right." So then I said to my brother Troy, I said, "Listen, do you want to come over and do some consultancy?" And he came into the company, and he's now CEO of the company, and he runs everything now.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was an early investor in the company too.
And you never even thought about hiring him?
I did, but I didn't want to be, it was nepotism. For me, it was kind of like, oh, what's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? Brother, all that kind of stuff. But actually he's the engine in the company, he runs it. And I just do the kind of top line stuff like selling and creating new products and all that kind of
stuff.
stuff.
Going on to podcasts and stuff.
Exactly. Just doing all the fun stuff, all the glamorous stuff.
And is there ever any friction there working with your brother?
Never.
No?
Never. No.
He just says jump when you say hi, basically. Is that
Pretty
it?
much, yeah. He's the boss. No, it was amazing. He's my older brother, 2 years, and we never ever competed for anything. I was highly competitive. And if he kind of hid it a bit. Like I was always like the younger brother trying to scrap my way up, and he'd be holding me up, pushing me up. And that's kind of always been...
That's lovely.
No, it's been brilliant. It's brilliant. Like he was always like really supportive as when we were kids.
Was it just the two of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then changed later. My dad got remarried and had another kid, but just was up until we were 19 or whatever, it was just the two of us. But he was highly supportive that whole time, playing rugby and doing all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I always had people around me going, "Yeah, you can do it," and they're probably going, "What? He man's going to do nothing. He's got no brains. This is never going to work. Yeah, you're great. How'd you go?"
Well, it does go to show you, telling someone how good they are. And you just said, you gave an example of your daughter today before you came up, you had a little concert.
Yeah. So again, down to the kids, the whole confidence with kids thing. So we're born with two fears in life. Do you know what they are?
No.
Fire and falling, right?
Okay.
So a kid won't put their hand in the fire, and they won't, if they go to a cliff, they'll stand back. They won't jump off a cliff, right? So that's what we're born with. But yet we create all these fears for ourselves through life, which really bothers me. I hate fear, right? And I often say to people, when they're afraid of doing one thing, I always go, what's the worst that can happen? Write it down. Are you going to go to jail? Are you going to get cancer? And I'm talking about doing something like horse riding or cycling on a bike or kite surfing or whatever. Like what's the worst that can happen? You write it down, you make it real. Well, actually, my mum might give out to me, or it's going to be fine, right? So my kids now, there's hardly any trees in Dubai. So my daughter and my 3-year-old are kind of looking the other day when we came home, and I was like, going up the tree, and they're going, "Really?" I'm like, "Get up the tree." And now they're up the tree all the time, they have the crack. Yeah. But so today, we're leaving tomorrow, and our two best friends, Margie and Georgia, next door, and they were all going to do like a Taylor Swift concert for us today. So it was 11:30 this morning, and I was out and I was coming back in, and I get the text from Margie and George's mum saying they've decided not to do the concert. So I'm like Captain Positive. So I'm like, they'll do the concert. So I come in and I say to the three girls, "Why are you not doing the concert?" "No, we're just kind of, we're afraid, a bit shy or whatever." And I said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And one of them says, "I want to be a dancer." The other one says, "I want to be a horse riding champion." I said, "Well, you're never going to be a dancer or a horse riding champion if you don't break this fear right now." Because I said, all of your heroes are breaking fears every day. And if you just sit back and let this fear take you, your future's gone. And they were like,
"Oh my God, 6-year-olds.
And then I was like, "But you imagine how great you're going to feel when you finish this dance. You're going to feel amazing." And we turn on the music and I start dancing with them, and they had a great time. They're dancing. They came out of it like jumping around the place because they beat their fear.
Yeah.
And like, it's amazing. At whatever age you start creating fears for yourself, you go through your whole life, you create a fear, you're not going to end up achieving things because you're kind of, safety first, you pull yourself back. And I would encourage everybody to just try everything until you get to a certain age where you
climb that tree.
Climb that tree. Yeah, there's the message.
Did you have any mentors as in your business life? You said yourself you're a mentor for 3 companies. Does anyone help you along that? No,
no. And I always get asked this, and I always disappoint. Not saying your questions aren't awesome, but I'm just saying no, because I agree with mentorship, but I think the reason was because both my parents had done it, and I kind of felt I could do everything. So it was arrogance, probably. I was kind of like, oh, I can do this. I don't need any help from anybody.
Okay.
But I mean, both my parents, I would have gone to them as mentors and just said, listen, I'm doing this. What do you think I should do? And blah, 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 and take certain roads. There is one pal of mine, Killian, I play golf with him the odd time, and he's kind of understated, very successful guy. People don't really know his name out there, but he's gone back in and forth out of many companies and sold in and out. And he has been down lots of roads. So if I ever get a legal problem or something like that, I'll phone him up and he goes, yeah, been there before. This is what you do, bang, bang, bang. And he kind of puts me on the right path. Because, I'm not a great lawyer. So he'll kind of know those kind of things. That it's
not use that lawyer anymore, though, the one who would slit their throat and watch them bleed out. I think we all need a lawyer like that.
Yeah, no, we do, yeah. No, I do. If I had the same problem, I would use that throat-slitting lawyer again, yeah. I mean, I like to have people who are, I suppose, adventurous, aggressive, whatever way you want to do. So if I have a lawyer on my team, I want them to just give me a definitive answer, no wishy-washy crap, and say, yeah, this is the way you got to go. Just take it. And I just say, right, light it up and take it on. Because we do get ourselves into the odd legal scrabble over people copying Vithit, and so we just have to take them on and defend yourself, And
is it constantly happening?
Yeah, and I kind of treat it like my child. It's like someone, saying your kid can't do something, your kid is ugly. Like, screw you. We're going back. Your kid's ugly. Oh, kid's a supermodel. But you gotta defend yourself. You've got to have huge pride and care about what you do. You have to have passion. Like, I look at it like, okay, I started this 25 years ago. Not only is it my life and my family's life and our creation of wealth to keep ourselves alive and going and, to live the lives that we want. But it also, like, you're defending your corner. It's like someone basically breaking down your door and say, yeah, we're just going to take your front room and maybe your TV room and you can go live upstairs. You're like, no, screw you. This is my house. You've got to have that real kind of animalistic, competitive nature that you're elbowing people out of the way when they want to come take your food.
Okay. Fair enough.
Getting angry now, aren't I?
There's a little bit of rage in your face. I like it.
Yeah.
You were talking about having your rainbow colours on the shelf. So do you normally go into a company, you normally have a few drinks for them to choose? You don't just go in with one or two for a shelf. You like to have the full complement on the shelf, do you?
Yeah. Well, you got to have as many as you possibly can, because so we've got 7 of our PET bottles, and then we've got 3 cans. So if you don't have 10 products on the shelf, someone else is going to take a bit, and suddenly you're getting shrunk down. So you want to have as many as possible. Now, that's possible in Ireland. It's not possible in the UK because we're not that well known. Or in Belgium or Holland, we might get 4 on the shelf, but you're always kind of pushing your way out. And then Coke are trying to squeeze you back in, and then Lucozade and CNC Britvic and all these companies trying to squeeze you back in, and you're always trying to push yourself out. So you're up against these behemoths who are trying to squash you the whole time.
Yeah, but you must be familiar with the likes of Liquid Death, though, that sparkling water can. They seem to have done it with 1 can, but that's been mental to watch them develop, hasn't it?
It's amazing. I mean, I think
like sparkling water.
I know, it's just incredible.
But I think it's just the name, everything. But if you sign up to their newsletter, it's gas. I think there was something online about someone got a message from them saying, "Hey, are you dead? I'm just worried about you." Totally breaking out of character. We're just wondering, has someone murdered you because you haven't, bought from us in a while? So they hone in on their message, the Liquid Death, and then it's really clever.
That guy was a creative in a company that worked for creative agencies, so he kind of had an advertising background, and I think he was working with like rock bands or whatever, and rock bands would have like let's say a can of Monster with water in it, right? Or they'd have like a can of whiskey with like Coca-Cola in it or whatever. So they were trying to do the rock star image, but they were drinking water. So that's where he got the idea from. He said, what if we had like a rock star can that people could kind of drink out of? So that was where his brilliant idea. I mean,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Gas to see what people can do, with basically essentially sparkling water.
Yeah, and a good imagination.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. What are your plans for the future? Would you like to sell? If you did, who do you think would buy you? Like a big Coke or something like that?
Yeah, there's always, not always, but the odd time, once every 18 months we get a phone call from somebody and they're kind of going, look, we like your brand, we'd like to have a chat or whatever. And I'll always have a chat to people. But, someone said to me the other day, and it's probably a bit corny, but someone said to me today, like, what would you do if you sold out and made millions? And I'd be doing exactly the same thing. Like, I'm living where I want to live. We're led by school days, right? So I've got to be beside my son's school for whatever, 8 months a year. So you're stuck beside whatever school you're in. So I'm not going to go off and live in Bahamas or anything like that. Education is really important, and my kids' lifestyle is really important. So I don't think anything would change. So then you got to ask yourself, okay, well, why would you sell? There's obviously a point at which, if they were to offer you stupid money, it would be remiss of me not to look at it, because you're talking about looking after your kids, and that's what it's all about. But for the moment, like, we've been profitable for whatever 10, 12 years. We solely own the company. We make all the decisions. It's still a family held company. So it's fun, and we've still got loads of growth to go. So if you were to take the way how successful we are in Ireland, so we're the top 7th best-selling drink in Ireland. If you were to take that and put that into the UK, the numbers are off the charts. Okay. So there's huge potential in the UK. And then you've got France, and you've got Germany. So we've a lot of work to do, and I'm enjoying it, because we're no longer struggling. I'm no longer going, my God, will I get paid today? Or, is the company going to go broke? We're now profitable, and we're growing, and the company is, like, we've grown on average of 24% for the last 10 years, year on year, which is getting harder because you're at a higher figure. But yeah, so I suppose the short answer to that is, we're not on the market to be sold, and we are profitable, so we don't need to sell. But if someone's come along and offer you stupid money, then you'd have to listen. Yeah,
okay. And in terms of, you said you're still growing, you'd love to get into the UK or really make a massive stab in there. Are you really, really busy day to day, or are you able to, since Troy came on board?
Do you want the truth?
Yeah, go on, tell us.
Troy does all the work.
Does he?
Yeah, he does, yeah. Yeah, no, do you know what? Back to the original thing, I'm not a workaholic. I have managed to set up a great life for myself by working hard when I had to. And now I have other people who do the stuff that I don't like to do. So the accounts, logistics, production, all that stuff.
VAT returns, do you not like them?
Jesus, I'm out of here. Yeah, so people do all that within the company, and Troy keeps an eye on that all, and he watches all that. So no, I do. I have to be honest, I have a great life.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah.
But if I was to say to you, would you take 12 years of not making any money, and I used to wake up, and I was definitely in a depressed state, semi-depressed state for about 3 years when I was making no money, trying to get out. And I'd wake up every morning, and there'd be solicitor's letters this high at the door. And you open your front door, and I remember waking up, and the nightmare would start again. I was living a nightmare. Couldn't pay my mortgage. I was losing my house. My car was repossessed. So that's all the stuff. And you see the bright, fun guy that I am now. And I was always, outwardly, I was always like that, but I was really suffering inside, because you're on your own and there's no one you can really share it with.
Yeah.
So yes, I have an amazing life now, and I really, really appreciate it. Like, I wake up most mornings and go, my God, I have a fantastic life. And we are now at a stage in the company where other people can do the stuff that I don't want to do. So I hope I kind of deserve a little bit of laziness back again.
To allow yourself, exactly. Yeah. So does anything keep you awake at night then, business-wise?
No.
That's a really good thing to be able to say, isn't it?
And again, that comes back to eternal optimism. Troy is a worrier.
Okay, poor old Troy.
So I know, poor Troy, yeah. But I think he enjoys his job. But
I'm sure you pay him well.
Yeah. Well, Troy's a significant shareholder in the company now. So and since he's moved in there, the company has doubled in value in the last 4 years. So he's doing great stuff. But he would have, he worries. I don't, but I've never been a worrier, right? Which was good when you're trying to multiply it up, but it's probably bad when you're a company. You've got to watch the bottom line, and you're doing well, you got to watch the bottom line. So he's the perfect guy in there. So he worries on behalf of me. And then if there's a big problem in front of me, he'll go, listen, prices are going to go up, we need to do something about it. And then I'll fly in and make a few phone calls and try and fix whatever situation it is. Because I've been in the business for 24 years, and all of his education, whatever, is great for running the engine of the company. But if he needs me to make a call to our manufacturer and get our price dropped, that's kind of what I would do. So I would do all the kind of top line stuff, and he just runs the everyday. But no, I've never been much of a worrier. Back then, when there was actually something to really worry about, yeah, I was worried a bit. But I would always think, oh no, there's light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to work. But it still wasn't. It wasn't fun. Those 3 or 4 years that I had, it got a bit tough at a few stages. Yeah, but I don't worry anymore.
That's great. And earlier on in the podcast, you said you'd need a huge amount of capital to start up a drinks company like yours today. But back then, 25 years ago, did you not need much because there wasn't as much competition? Or
well, because I'm not exactly the researcher, I just was like, yeah, I can just create some products here. I've got like 10 grand to start. I'm just going to do it. And there was no research done at all. But I've never been one to put barriers in front of me. And I think that's because of my mum and dad were like, yeah, you can start your own business. Just go, So I literally just got 10 grand together. I bought some bottles and put them in the corner. And I remember standing in and seeing like 10 or 12 pallets full of product going, I'm going to have to sell it now. So then you put it in a van and you go around and sell it and that kind of stuff.
But even saying 10 grand, like I assume now the MOQs for that's minimum order quantity for anyone listening, doesn't it? I'd say they're huge now because it just seems...
They are, but you can always tell a nice white lie. So even back then, I was saying, oh, I'm huge. I'm so big around, I'm so big in Ireland. I'm just going to be selling maybe 500,000 bottles a year in my first year, and then we'll go up to like 10 million. And the manufacturers go, oh, really? And I go, yeah, absolutely. And so then they go, okay, well, what's your minimum requirement? They go, oh, it's 10,000 cases. Go, I'm starting with 2. And they'd go, okay, we'll meet you at 3, but we know you're going to be big. Yeah, because I'm huge. And you've got to kind of tell those little white lies because, you got to believe you're going to be big. And so in a way, I was kind of telling the truth.
You were?
Yeah, because I thought we were going to be big. But yeah, and you get the minimum order requirements down low. And then after a year, they kind of go, this isn't growing as much as you said it would. And don't worry about that. We're keeping growing. So, there's ways around everything. You've got to just, like, you just put a barrier up in front of me. Don't be doing that. No barriers.
Yeah, okay.
No barriers. And look, speaking about barriers, I have to be careful how I put this, but so I was in Dubai watching a rugby match and I was invited to a table of 17, what turned out to be 17 school teachers. I was having a great crack with them. And then they said, what do you do? And I said, I make Vithit. And they all said, oh, wow, how did you start that? Because they all knew the brand from being in Ireland. And all Irish school teachers, by the way, who have left Ireland, why are we getting that brain drain? But that's another conversation. But anyway, so chatting away to them. And then they said, well, how'd you do it? And I said, well, I bought an apartment. They said, you can't do that. And I said, well, why not? And they said, because you can't, it's too expensive in Ireland, it's too expensive in Cork, too expensive in Galway. And I'm like, that sounds like barriers to me, lads. And anyway, I kept chatting. And then I said, and what'd you do then? Well, I rented a car and I drove around the country. That cars are very expensive. And they put all these barriers up against me. And I said to some guys, would you be interested in starting your own company? Oh, yeah. And I said, well, you got to get rid of this negative attitude that you're putting barriers in front of yourself. Like, you do that, you're never going to start your own business. If you want to stay school teacher, it's cool, but like if you want to start your own business, you can't be saying can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And it amazed me how negative they were. Very positive people, but then when you start to say, let's go and start your own business, oh, can't do that. So anyway, I eventually said to them, look, if you want to, I said, if I was you today and I was on the wages that you're on and they're not paying tax, so you're putting aside a few quid every month, I said, I would buy a house. And they go, but you can't. I said, no, you can. I said, you go on the internet and you look at the next surf spot. So I said, Sri Lanka. There's an up and coming surf spot. You could probably buy a house there for 50 grand. And then one of them said, well, how would you get a mortgage? I go,
oh God.
I said, I'll tell you how you get a mortgage. You're making whatever, 50 grand a year tax free, 70 grand. I don't know what it is. So you can get a mortgage off the back of that. You get a surf shack, you put it on Airbnb, you rent it out to people, you make money, and then you buy another one. And when you have enough money, then you can do,
I think there's only certain people that could do that could actually have that.
But I'm here to tell you, I disagree.
Yeah.
You can, it's like my kids this morning, they didn't want to dance. You can put positive vibes in anywhere. And if you don't make the barrier too high, the barrier is very high in Ireland to buy a house. I get it. It is horrendous. If you're a young person, I understand why young teachers are going to live in Dubai. They're going over there for 4 or 5 years, they're making enough money and they're coming back and they're buying houses. That's what I would do. But I would also be trying to say, okay, how can I do something else and have a second income, third income. Well, some of the wealthiest people in the world have like 6 or 7 incomes. That's a whole other book that you can write on that. And I'd be just, saying, which is when I couldn't afford to put money into Vithit, I was buying and selling houses when you could. You can't do that in Ireland anymore, correct? But you can certainly do it in other countries. I don't know, Romania. I'd be looking at all these places and I'd be kind of saying, okay, where's the next tourist destination? Albania, by the way, is becoming a new tourist destination.
Really?
I drove through there in 2017. I was actually on a car touring thing and we went through Albania. I'm like, what the hell are we going to go through Albania? It's beautiful, right? And now there's this whole Instagram thing with people going through Albania. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's got Mediterranean weather. It's got incredible lakes, hiking. It's a beautiful country. So, I mean, maybe, I'm not saying you buy because I think it's a communist country still, but there are places out there, Philippines, that you can buy something that you could maybe Airbnb. And that's what I would do. I'm not saying everybody goes out and buys property in Sri Lanka or Philippines or whatever, but that would be my route because I think there's a lot of wealth generation in property. And if you're stuck here and you cannot afford any property here, do you just give up or do you go and find another way? And I think going to another country that is coming up through the ranks might be a way to do it. It was what I would do if I was younger.
I wonder will the Irish property portfolio increase in any of these countries after this podcast goes out?
Please, God, go for it. No barriers.
Did you ever have any interest in going into any other areas of business? So you have the drinks thing down. Did you ever think you wanted to go into other aspects of health or even just, I don't know, fashion? You're a very fashionable man. I'm loving the runners
here. Thank you. There's too many people in that better than me.
Or did you think that might have been a distraction?
Yeah, I'm a one-trick pony.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm your typical bloke. You know the way girls can hear like 3 conversations at once and men can only focus on one? I'm that guy.
Okay.
So I have, in my phone, I have probably 40 business ideas that I always write down that if I was to be chuck out of Vithit someday, that I would start. It's really tempting to do it, but I just don't have the bandwidth. I have to focus on one thing. I don't have the bandwidth to do other things. And that's just me. There are people, and fair play to them, who can run multiple businesses at once. I just think that if you take your eye off the prize, and Vithit is like, it's a bit of a unicorn because it's so hard. If you see Coca-Cola, every year around the world, Coca-Cola alone will probably create 300 brands around the world, and 299 of them will fail in 3 years' time. So it's highly unusual to have a fast-moving consumer good that actually sells and is successful. I know how lucky I am, and a lot of it's luck, by the way. And I'm not here to tell you that I'm a genius because when I started it, I remember being in Australia in 1991, and I was on a building site, and I would come home at 5 a.m. and see people jogging along the river there. And I was going, my God, people actually jog in the mornings? This was like unheard of. Now down in Sandymount, you can see people jogging every morning. So when I started then in 2000, people in Ireland had no interest in fitness, low sugar, low calories, no interest in it. So I was lucky enough that suddenly I didn't know things were going to change. But had things not changed and people not got fitter, I wouldn't be sitting here today with a successful business. So you have to be lucky with timing as well.
Yeah, no, they do say that. It's all about luck as well. Are you spiritual or religious in any way?
No. I'd say for me, I think you kind of make your own luck. Now, that's easy for me to say, having been from a middle-income family in South Dublin. It's very hard for people who are not in such a privileged position, much harder than it was for me. But I don't know, my spirituality is all about positivity. It's all about you get what you fight for. When I was lazy and sitting on my ass, I got nothing. And then when I started fighting for it and really I took myself out of the bottom of the bucket and things made. But I think I'd be I don't know, I never actually asked about my spiritual. It's an interesting question. I have this innate positivity and happiness about me. I don't really suffer in bad things for long. So maybe that is a spirituality of sorts. I don't know.
Yeah, could be. So what advice would you give young people today?
No barriers. But it's I would always say, look, don't look at the final destination point. Look at the step you have to take every day to get to the final destination point. So it is quite, it's quite a daunting thought to say, someday I want to create the next iPhone, or someday I want to create the next Cadbury's chocolate bar, or whatever that is, the next glassware, whatever it is. And that's a really daunting task. But if you say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to phone a glassmaker. Let's say you want to become a glassmaker. Tomorrow I'm going to phone a glassmaker. Then he says you need 20 grand to create glasses, and then another 10 grand to design them. I don't have 30 grand. But then you go to your designer and you pay him a grand a month or a grand every 3 months or whatever you can afford, and you build, and then you got your design done. And then you say, God, I got to get another 20 grand. How am I going to do that? Well, you don't make 20 grand, you make it a grand a time or 100 quid at a time, and you just build. So I think a lot of people get put off by the final destination. Whereas if you have the final destination, but the steps towards that destination, just take one step every day towards the dream that you want, you can get there. So I would just say to people, and then you'll fall in a step, just get up and go again. You know, if you're in a fight and someone puts you on the ground, the fight's over if you don't get back up again. So there's many times where I had so many failures that had I not got back up again, I wouldn't have the amazing life I have today. You've got to get back up.
And Gary Lavin, what is the meaning of life?
For me, it's all about family. It's all about kids. Like the happiest times, like, so this morning back when my girl and her two pals were dancing, I was just, happier than if I was on a yacht in the Caribbean. Like just hearing your children laughing and giggling and having fun. That's what life's all about for me. And isn't that what life's all about? Isn't that why we're here?
Yeah.
It's all about kids. And I think if you take it a step back, why is the world so obsessed with making money? And because I think it's probably originally started for providing for your family. That's probably where the innate want to make money comes from. Because when you're settled and you're not worried about where your money's coming from tomorrow, and you can see a road to the future where your kids are having the crack all the time, that's it for me.
Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the pod.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Appreciate it.